Get ready for MAFDOMiNUS' Godzillathon! 10 years ago today, I was only 11 years old when I first watched Godzilla 2014 on the big screen. Now, I was already a Godzilla fan at the time because I was introduced to Godzilla through Godzilla 2000, the 98 movie, and GMK. Those were some of the first Godzilla movies I ever saw, but Godzilla 2014 was the very first Godzilla movie I saw in theaters on the big screen. It was a huge deal for me. I got to see Godzilla on the big theatrical release, but who would have guessed that little old me was in for an even larger ride? For Godzilla's grand return was only just the beginning of the larger universe, the Monsterverse, which I think we should all feel lucky that we even have it in the first place because of how hard it is to get the rights to King Kong, and Godzilla also having equal rights because Toho is very protective of Godzilla. We should all feel lucky that Legendary had the rights to both in order to create the rematch of the century. King Kong vs. Godzilla was an interesting concept, putting two of the most famous legendary kaijus together in one big epic fight, but in 1962, the special effects weren't all that good. It was just two men in rubber suits just duking it out, and while it can be fun, I feel like modern effects could have done it way better. And they did! Godzilla and Kong got a rematch in 2021, and, well, what now? If you think about it, this was kind of the end goal for the Monsterverse, just to have Godzilla and Kong fight. It seemed like there was nothing else to do with the Monsterverse, until Godzilla vs. Kong got a sequel. I was actually kind of surprised when I first heard that it was getting a sequel, because remember, Godzilla vs. Kong was one of the most anticipated rematches of all time, and when that happened, everybody was just kind of satisfied with it. So to hear that it was getting a sequel where Godzilla and Kong would reunite once more was kind of shocking, at least for me because I was satisfied with the rematch. Why would they go up against each other again? Did we really need a Godzilla vs. Kong 2? Well, I'm glad we got it, because the best way to describe this movie is that it's an awesome, fantastic, action-packed popcorn hell of a time, with more monsters, more action, more world building there ever was in a Monsterverse movie. The film is about King Kong now living in the Hollow Earth, where he's trying to find members of his own species. Meanwhile, Godzilla lives in the surface world where he protects humanity from other titans. As long as Kong stays in his own territory, Godzilla's all good. But then a mysterious signal comes from Hollow Earth. Meanwhile, Gia, the little girl from the last movie, is now a teenager, but now she can sense the signal as well. So Eileen Andrews teams up with the conspiracy theories Bernie from the last movie, as well as a new character named Trapper, to go into the Hollow Earth and figure it out. They go deeper into the Hollow Earth, and Kong discovers a baby version of his species named Suko, but he's not exactly all that friendly. Kong soon discovers there's other species of apes living in the Hollow Earth. Meanwhile, Godzilla is going on his own training arc to get stronger for the fight. And Gia's revealed that her people are actually still alive, and they're the ones that are sending the signal because of a threat that's going to be coming to the surface world pretty soon. Meanwhile, Kong bonds with Suko, and he starts to actually warm up to him a little bit. As they arrive at their destination, it's revealed that Kong's species is actually enslaved by bigger and meaner apes. I like that this movie characterizes Kong a bit by showing that he's a much more caring and benevolent leader than the Scar King. Oh look, here's what comes my favorite part, where this ape is just yelling at him after he held that other ape, and then Kong just punches him, having enough of his crap. Oh yeah, I forgot about the Scar King. He's the big bad guy that enslaved all of the apes. And when Scar King sees that Kong has a metal tooth, he laughs his ass off, making fun of him. What a dick. Scar King gets mad at Suko, but his caretaker tries to defend him, and Scar King responds by kicking him into the lava. Boy, what a dick. So Kong and Scar King fight each other, and it looks like Kong is about to win, but then Scar King reveals his secret weapon. He's got an ancient titan named Shimu enslaved and bowing to his command by some mind control crystal thing he has at the end of his whip. Kong tries to use the axe to block Shimu's ice breath, but all that causes is the axe to freeze and get frostbite. At the same time, the human characters are learning about the backstory of Scar King and Shimu, so yeah, they don't get as much development as the monsters. Although Eileen does have her character moment where she believes her daughter's going to leave her to go back to her own people, and she's trying to learn to accept it. But by the end, Gia just wants to go wherever her mother goes, and that's very touching. But back to the main story, Kong is obviously injured and he realizes that he cannot do this on his own. Meanwhile, one of Scar King's ape spies informs him of Kong's location. We also see Scar King as a harem of unwilling brides, so he's also a serial sex offender. Man, what a dick. But obviously, the best part is when Godzilla rises out of the ice and reveals his very pinkish Barbenheimer Ultra form. And as for Kong, it turns out Monarch was working on a secret project to give Kong like an upgrade, but it never went beyond the prototype phase. But very conveniently, the prototype was left in Hollow Earth and Trapper goes back to get it. The Beast Glove heals Kong's frostbite and gives him electric powers. Then he goes to the surface to recruit Godzilla, who then jumps off a cliff like he's some kind of dolphin or something. But obviously Godzilla isn't going to listen to Kong, so Gia summons Mothra, obviously his girlfriend. So Godzilla comes and kicks Kong's ass. There's like a brief rematch between these two, and it was really nice. They do like these WWE wrestling moves, and Kong tries to kidnap Godzilla. But of course Godzilla isn't going to let that happen. Luckily Mothra comes in and talks some sense into Godzilla to work together with Kong to face the greater threat. Now here's an interesting piece of trivia. Originally Legendary didn't know if they still had the rights to use Mothra, so they had a placeholder kaiju in there named Phosphora who would have taken Mothra's role in the movie if they couldn't use her. But luckily Legendary still had the rights to use Mothra, so she's in the movie and not Phosphora. And in my opinion, using Mothra was the better choice simply because Mothra and Godzilla already have an established relationship. Imagine if this Titan just suddenly came out of nowhere and was revealed to be Godzilla's greatest ally. It would just seem kind of random. But obviously the best part of the movie is the final battle where Scar King sees that there's portals to the surface world, and then Godzilla and Kong show up from the portal and they just start running at him. Seeing these two iconic monsters working side by side instead of fighting each other sure is legendary. This gravity scene is really cool and all, but mayhem really starts to begin when they go to Rio de Janeiro and they just start duking it out and destroying the city in this epic classic kaiju battle. Man, if 11-year-old me could see this right now. Even Zuko turns out to be incredibly useful when he uses Kong's axe to destroy the crystal, freeing Shimo from Scar King's mind control. So then Kong punches Scar King, throws him at Godzilla, Godzilla whacks him with his tail, Kong holds Scar King in a chokehold, and then Shimo freezes him and Kong kills him. Oh my god, I'm gonna be dying of an awesome-gasm. And so the heroes save the day. Mothra heals the Hollow Earth protection barrier, the human characters celebrate their minimum contributions. Godzilla goes to sleep at the Roman Colosseum like he's one big giant cat that just sleeps anywhere he wants to. And Kong finally gets his happy ending where he's reunited with his species and becomes their new king, finally earning his title King Kong. I guess what makes this movie really fun and awesome is the fact that the monsters are the characters. Kong is the main character. We see his struggles. We see his character growth. We get to see him become King Kong. We also get to explore the world he comes from, the Hollow Earth. We get to see more Titans. And there's a lot more fight scenes in this movie than there are in the other Monsterverse movies. Seriously, there was a lot, like Kong fighting that weird snake thing, Godzilla versus Tiamat, Godzilla versus Scylla. And yeah, I know, it's not that deep of a movie. After all, the human characters in this movie are definitely not the most well developed. They do have the bare minimum to keep you interested enough, but otherwise you can cut them out of the movie and the movie would still probably be the same, but that's not the point. The point is, the monsters are the main characters. You follow them instead. This is definitely a Kong story, and even though Kong isn't the most deep and introspective character, he still has a character that you can follow and be interested and root for him. And the fact that by the end, Kong is finally reunited with his species. Like, in a lot of King Kong movies, Kong is usually the last of his kind, but now finally we get to explore the character beyond what all of the remakes have been doing for years, where King Kong is the last of his kind, he gets killed by airplanes, the end. This time, Kong actually gets expanded as a character. We get to see him interact with other members of his species. He actually gets his own happy ending, and even develops a father and son relationship with Zuko, showing that, hey, he's becoming a man now, and a father too. This is definitely a more King Kong centered story. And his adoptive son Suko is definitely an interesting character because he starts off being kind of this evil monkey as well, but then it's revealed that he's only evil because the Scar King commands him so, and then you see Kong being nice to him and Suko starts to actually become nicer. It's good character development, especially by the end when Suko actually does something useful in the final battle and uses the axe to destroy the crystal. It's not that often when the cute and cuddly side character actually gets to contribute to the plot. And the villains are just as interesting. Scar King may not have the deepest backstory, but he's such an unabashable dick that he's just fun to watch, especially when it's so satisfying when you see Kong killing him. And Shimu, well, she's just an innocent puppy that Scar King hypnotized into being evil, and by the end she's just so adorable when she's finally revealed to be this innocent dog-like kaiju. And oh yeah, Shimu's also a girl, which is pretty interesting because we really don't get that many female kaiju, like Mothra, Biollante, and Megaguirus come to mind, but that's it. So yay, gender equality, where even girls can be monsters. Now, if I do have one complaint about this movie, it's the fact that Godzilla is just kind of there. The main story revolves around Kong and the human characters exploring Hollow Earth, and then every once in a while it just cuts back to see what Godzilla is up to. Like, the movie has to remind us that Godzilla is a character in this movie. It feels like you could have cut out Godzilla entirely and just have the movie be a Kong movie, and that's kind of disappointing that Godzilla was just kind of added there for marquee value, but you know what? It's happened before in Godzilla vs. Megalon where Jet Jaguar was supposed to be the main character, but then Godzilla was added at the last minute. So it's really nothing new for the franchise, but hey, at least Godzilla actually has a presence in this movie and contributes a lot to the final battles, so I'm not complaining too much, alright? This was definitely a fun movie. If you're into that sort of popcorn thing where you're just there to have a good time, then this movie is for you. If you're looking for something deep like Godzilla Minus One, then you're not gonna get it, but honestly, why are you guys even comparing Godzilla Minus One to Godzilla X Kong? Those two movies are going for two completely different directions for Godzilla, and that's okay, because Godzilla is the kind of character that can adapt into whatever kind of movie he's in. That's how the character has worked for 70 years. Yes, it's true that sometimes Godzilla is a metaphor for the nuclear horrors of war, but at the same time, he's also been a hero. He's been an anti-hero, an anti-villain, a force of nature, a father, a role model for children. He's been a plant. He's also been the ghost of dead World War II soldiers vowing revenge for Japan. Jesus, Godzilla has been it all. So why can't both exist? Why can't we have both a deep Godzilla movie and a fun Godzilla movie? Is it really too much to ask for both? But I guess that's up to you guys, because for me, I think it works either way, because that's the type of character that Godzilla is, and that's how he's been relevant for 70 years now. I've been a fan of him since I was a kid, and I'll continue to be a fan of him now. And this movie really does tap into that inner child. It reminded me of the innocent days where I would just have my monsters fight each other as toys. And that's what Godzilla X Kong is supposed to be. One big giant toy commercial. And you know what? We all love it for that.